Hello everyone, welcome to the Platform SIG weekly meeting. We're going to make the usual tour over the last events in the project. So today we want probably to cover at least a Java 11 status report because if you didn't follow, we announced the Java 11 preview availability in late December. So we had a check. There's no outstanding report, I would say, one from Mark, which we are likely going to cover a bit, I think. But yeah, anything else you have in mind, Mark?
So I put a topic on there for Devin to talk about the workflow support plugin. It's in the workflow support plugin next release item, the
Yep.
one that, yeah. So Devin's here and he can discuss that and the Docker build topics there. We also had ATH and PCT on the list that I wasn't sure if they should stay in. Baptiste, do you want to talk to those, or is there nothing changed since 2 weeks ago? Either is fine.
Well, yeah, there's a few smallish things. Like there's one I remember because I was the one working on that, but it was really a small one. PCT now displays the JVM version when it's being reported, so it's easy to actually double check which JVM version was in use for even test. But it's small one. I think, yeah, there were already a few improvements here and there. Not yet. There's a one that is actually now in review also from Ramon about making things work better. So I accepted it. No, I'm not going to open it anyway. So that would be the one. And so, yeah, there's a nice announcement for the workflow support plugin release, next release, I mean, because there's something was fixed by Devin. So I'm going to, by the way, probably give you just the stage, Devin, to discuss that. But basically, one of the outstanding issue and an MPE that was surfacing got fixed by a version, basically. Devin, can you explain a bit, maybe?
Yeah, sure. So I guess the high level overview is that pipelines were failing after restart 100% of the time for any pipeline whatsoever. Even the most absolutely basic pipeline was unable to restart. And the root cause of it turned out to be that JBoss marshalling somewhere along the line had a regression that made them no longer compliant with the Java serialization specification. And so in certain circumstances with certain class and object hierarchies, parent class constructors wouldn't be called at deserialization time. But it turned out that they had actually fixed this later on, so we just needed to bump the version to pick up the fix that they had already done for it. And so once we picked up that fix, things looked good. And so we should be ready to release that probably today and push it out for everybody. I guess the tricky piece of this is that it also means that because restarts were never working, that functionality has never been tested. So we've never tested the long tail of functionality that is somewhat specific to the after restart behavior. So for example, like Mark raised an issue that probably doesn't have anything to do with workflow support itself, but might be some other issue that was just, we never could have seen before because this would have always broke first.
And so, just to clarify or make sure, you mean it was never working on Java 11, or is this larger because it's actually related to marshalling 2.0 or something?
Yeah, this had nothing to do specifically with Java 11 or Java 8. JBoss marshalling 2.0 would have been broken for Java 8 and Java 11.
Right, but given we don't use JBoss marshalling 2.x on Java 8, that's an issue that didn't surface then, right?
Yeah, I mean, so we've never released this to non-experimental Java 11 users,
right.
So
yeah. For people watching, indeed, we are using JBoss marshalling 1.x right now still because it's not the JBoss the workflow support plugin still uses it in non-experimental versions right now.
It's very likely though that we'll release it for regular users as well, rather than having a split branch for Java 11 and Java 8, because there's nothing in particular here that is required for Java 8.
But then, even for Java 8, does that I understand? Because for again, for people watching and for even anyone watching it afterwards or right now in the call, um, I think this bump to from JBoss marshalling from 1.x to 2.x makes it impossible to restart a live pipeline even on Java 8, right?
Yeah, I mean, so in general, updating JBoss marshalling, they make no guarantees that there's binary compatibility in the serialization format from version to version. So every time you upgrade JBoss marshalling, it generally means that you cannot live restart pipelines across that upgrade. So when we release this, we'll have to add a warning that says basically, this time you need to make sure every pipeline you're running is completely finished and stopped
Yeah.
before you continue.
That's a reasonable one-shot issue, and that's also very good news because then it means that we can just, indeed, as you were saying, as I understand, push that out as soon as possible in the main line, so that people would kind of hit that possible issue as soon as possible before uh, Java 11 becomes widely GA, general availability, and then that would be an issue that people that have already gone through that update wouldn't see just because of Java 11.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm not sure I understand. Baptiste, I thought you were advocating a more aggressive approach than I would have wanted. It feels like this is one where the upgrade to JBoss marshalling 2 potentially could break many people, and I'm hesitant to do that on the production code until we've had significant testing to verify it. Could you
Well,
clarify further what
I,
you were
th-
saying,
I
Baptiste?
think this is not really what I was saying. I was trying
Oh,
to
okay.
rephrase, and I think that's what Devin was saying, isn't it?
yeah, so I mean, basically, 100% of the time, guaranteed, there are no workarounds. When you update JBoss marshalling, you will not be able to run pipelines across that restart. I mean, maybe we could try some real heroics and reverse engineer the binary format, but at the end of the day, we're just going to have to accept that that's not ever going to be a compatible upgrade. And so we are not aware, this change in isolation for Java 8 users is not particularly interesting, other than that things aren't going to work across the upgrade. For Java 11 users, it's absolutely necessary. So from Pipeline Team's perspective, we'd like to do this update anyway. So we'll probably just push it out for everybody at once. And then Baptiste's point is kind of, once we move this past us, we don't foresee updating JBoss marshalling again anytime soon, except in the case of regressions. We basically never touch it.
Okay, so I've captured in the notes when we update JBoss marshalling from 1 to 2, pipeline restart won't work in the first restart after the plugin upgrade. Did I say that correctly?
Yeah. Well, yeah. Specifically, any pipelines running across that restart will fail at the restart.
Pipelines running across the restart. Good.
And it's not necessarily specific to the 1 to 2 jump. Even minor updates of JBoss marshalling would cause this. So this is kind of like an update that we never really do because of that problem.
Okay, so it's not tied to a specific version. It's that they don't promise binary compatibility from any version to any version.
Yeah, I mean, in some cases it does work.
Okay.
We've skipped like 7 or 8 releases with this bump.
Okay. All right, so may not work in the first restart, and we know that they don't work in the upgrade to the pre-release version that's used for Java 11 right now.
Yep.
Okay.
And so, as you say, given this JBoss marshalling 2.x bump is required for supporting Java 11 in the future, you're saying the pipeline team is strongly considering doing that bump. I mean, like right now, even for Java 8 users, because that is something we want to kind of have a look at or like deploy as soon as possible, given the fact that that's what one-shot issue should be likely rather sooner than later behind us or something like this.
Yeah, and I mean, we don't want to be maintaining multiple long-lived branches with significant differences between them.
Yeah, there's also that indeed. Yeah, right. Because as we are approaching Java 11 GA, yeah, let's try to avoid multiple branching. Right.
Yep.
Sorry, Mark. I think I screwed up your typing.
Great, no problem. Thanks for helping.
Well, I was thanks for trying. In the end, I didn't. I created more issue than helping. Anyway, yeah, thanks. Sorry. So what was the next thing on so that thing I think we covered at pretty lengthy. So that's probably okay. Anyone has any question about that issue? Any concern or whatever?
Yeah, there's one question. I'm wondering, is there any way how to get the pipelines that didn't survive the restore to die in sort of a easy to identify way?
Not necessarily trivial. They'll all fail with some kind of error where one of the causes will be failed to load pipeline, failed to deserialize pipeline. But the root causes will be generally weird things like, stream corrupted or things like that.
I think indeed some was hinted about some things about that some time ago. Maybe I'm wrong, but couldn't you, Devin, like catch the fact that it's being restarted, try to identify the version of marshalling and, at least issue warning or something? I'm not sure it's feasible or it's really worth the effort, but yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we certainly could try something like that, catching the specific exception, logging it. I don't know. I can certainly talk with the team and see what they think. My inclination is just to add a incompatibility warning for the next release and explain it in the release notes.
Right. You mean like in the incompatibility warning only in the release notes, you mean, or like in the plugin metadata, so that it actually triggers a warning while updating?
Yeah, in the metadata. I mean, so that way, at least people will have a chance. I assume anybody who is clicking through those warnings is going to be okay if things break.
Yeah, right. If there's a big fat red warning, and like, okay, please make sure there's nothing running while you're doing that one-shot upgrade, then the issue will be gone. Makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, that's a good point. We could think about what it would take to.
What would be your what would you request, David, or something? Maybe could maybe Oliver file a Jira or something about that, or how do you would like maybe to try to be able to track that, or is this enough like this, or?
Yeah, I mean, if you want to file a Jira, we can.
Triage it.
The main thing is just that, from my point of view, it adds some complexity that only matters one time. So I don't know.
Yeah, and not even in all cases, because not everyone is going to push an upgrade while pipelines are running, maybe, or
yeah. I don't know, but yeah, certainly if you want to open a Jira, by all means. I mean, I'll mention it to the team as well, see if anybody has opinions. But
great. Yeah.
Oliver, are you okay with that action item? We'll ask you to open a Jira to help us track that.
Yeah, I will take it.
Thank you, Oliver. Yeah, nice point. Thank you for raising it. Anything else?
Not from me, thank you.
Great. Thank you. So I think we could move, just feel anyone free to interrupt, but I think we are going to move to the next item. So it was one about Mark fixing the Docker build, which is still something that's open for review. That, by the way, I think I screwed up because it's not where that thing should be. It's more in the notes. So here, right. So that's the one. Here, sorry, this way maybe. So that was the PR. So basically, Mark, maybe you want to explain. I'm not going to to steal your PR.
Super. Yeah. So the Docker image that the OpenJDK 11 project chooses to delivers an operating system that's based on Debian SID. SID is the Debian distribution that is always unstable, always, and it never releases. I think they made a disastrously poor choice. I'm not clear why they made it, and I didn't find any indications why, but I think we should switch and base ourselves on a stable version of an operating system, not an unstable one. SID has no security team. I love Debian, but Debian SID is not a place to do production work. And they tell us it's not a place to do production work. So the proposal is switch to the upcoming release of Buster. That's one alternative. Right now, if we don't make this switch, we have a broken build on the master branch of the Docker repository, the Docker images, because the JDK11 build is failing. So we've got to do something about it, whether this pull request or another pull request.
Okay, that's cool because you're now you're explaining, but that's what you've written, but now you're saying that by voice. I had missed the fact that I thought it was all OpenJDK that was based on SID. So you're saying only the JDK11 branch is based on SID.
Correct. Only
Right.
JDK11. They only made that choice. And during JDK11 development, that's not a bad choice. But now that JDK11 is production,
Yeah, right.
having a Docker image based on an unstable operating system is a mistake.
Yeah, it makes sense. So definitely, and I would say probably there's an action we should do on our side to kind of close the loop. Is to actually look for or file an issue on the associated tracker somewhere. And I'm not sure which one, probably Docker one, Docker Inc. one, probably, to report that issue or make sure there's one existing, explaining, okay, that's probably not something desired or something. You see what I mean? Like making sure, because OpenJDK, given the fact it's an official image, probably has a tracker, it's maintained and followed by the Docker Inc. team, I think, and much likely there is a tracker somewhere to report issues. I think we should actually have an action to make sure this is known about, so that we actually know if there's some rationale behind that or something. And I think we should just at the same time move away from it, because indeed you're right, we should move to Buster or whatever. But yeah.
Thanks. I've recorded the action item for me to raise an issue on that image. I'm passionate enough about it that I'll flag that. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, I think it's kind of making sure to close the loop, making sure, and because it's always I think useful to understand the rationale or whatever. If there's none, maybe we are going to be the first one to raise the issue, maybe. But yeah,
no,
maybe kind of contribute upstream also.
But there was one more action that I viewed, which I'm not sure who has it, which is who decides if the pull request is allowed into the Docker image or not. I'm not sure who has permission to say, yes, that's okay. And
I have, Oleg has, and we are a few people. Probably, I mean, it's as any kind of thing we have on the Jenkins project. It's like maintainer and time based. So if you're interested, probably you could become also a maintainer, basically. And about the image choice and everything, I think it's kind of I think we discussed that some time ago also, about the fact that there was that issue about supporting or not Alpine. You remember? So basically, right now, for people watching, there's an ongoing issue with Alpine, because Alpine didn't provide yet a JDK11 version. And it's unlikely to be fixed soon, because building JDK11 is a mess, and it depends on pretty deep things in the libc. And libc is not what's used in Alpine. It's mu libc or something. So it's Musel, another library which is supposedly mimicking, but actually not everything. So it's kind of complicated. And given the fact that OpenJDK release cadence is accelerating, it's not really likely that his issue is going to be fixed for good, because then we will have JDK 12, 13, and everything. So there's nothing decided yet, but indeed there's a discussion to maybe unsupported Alpine or whatever from the Jenkins project standpoint, because it's maybe not really sustainable if even the OpenJDK itself, they can't provide an Alpine version. We are not going to do that better than they do on Java itself. So my point is that maybe at some point we should actually have a JEP that describes the rationale, the thing I'm talking about right now, basically, plus many things about, okay, the supported platforms, the reason why, and so that we could then iterate on and explanations and everything about what we support, and probably there. So that's kind of my point, and my that's why that long explanations come from. Um, is that then there we would explain why we chose, for instance, Buster, or why we didn't chose something specific for whatever reason. See what I mean? Does it make a bit, at least a bit of sense?
I think so. So is the action item then that we should do a JEP for a discussion about which Docker images we support? Help me clarify that. I'm happy to
Yeah, yeah,
open a JEP
yeah.
for
No,
it.
you're right. So to make something concrete out of the blabbering I just put out, basically, yeah. This kind of still thinking right now, but I don't know what others think. But yeah, probably we should at some point have a JEP trying to describe the platforms we support and we plan to support, because right now it's kind of a de facto support and de facto de-support, I would say, because for instance Alpine we cannot, so we just stop doing it, and it's not great. So yeah, I guess doing something long term, more explain or whatever, would make much sense in a JEP.
Okay, so one of the topics that was raised there, and so JEP is a great place for a conversation. Oliver, this is one I think that you may be a very interested party in. One of the suggestions that Baptiste had made earlier to me was, should we consider switching to or adding a CentOS or a Red Hat based Docker image into
Yeah,
this as part of the Java 11 exercise? So I think we would discuss that in the context of the JEP. Right.
absolutely.
So Debian
And that's
continue.
definitely a job that could be handled overall. I mean, is there's obviously someone needed to write the core of it, but it's kind of a definitely, I think, a platform SIG concern to try and define platforms we do support actually. So yeah, and
Okay, and then Durgadas would want probably some indication on S390.
And
And
also changing the default recommended platform. For instance, right now we've been discussing a lot that Debian or Ubuntu might not be the right place nowadays to do Java development, given the crap right recently, about the Debian backporting that happened to have forgotten some part of the upstream patches or something. That was that Ubuntu that you discovered recently, Mark, about the fact that on Ubuntu, if you installed JDK 10, I think, or something. No,
yeah,
it's the contrary. If you installed Java 11 on Ubuntu right now, it installs Java 10, right?
correct.
So I'm wondering if really there was some explanations on the internet recently. People were saying, well, seems like unfortunately Debian-based platforms seems to lack the necessary empathy and like expertise maybe with regard to making actually sure the platform is nice to JVM based applications.
Yeah, so it feels like a JEP is a good
Yeah.
place to consider that. I'm happy to open that JEP.
Yeah, I
And
think, and anyway, the JEP process is a good thing because anyway, as I remember it, we would need to create a thread on the dev list to discuss, to try and trigger discussions, trigger thoughts. So as part of the JEP process. So anyway, I mean, having feedbacks and trying to make the ball move forward kind of makes some sense,
okay,
I think. What do you others think? And what do you think, Oliver, for instance?
Well, I have no strong opinion. There's probably one thing I do not understand. Are we as a platform SIG motivated to actually support different containers based on different Linux distributions? I mean, I would understand having some container supporting Java 8 or Java 11, but is there any consumers that actually care what distribution we base it on?
Well, it's can. That's a good point. I think we should probably support not a lot of different platforms, if that is what you are asking. But what I'm saying is that maybe, for instance, we should think about making, I don't know, CentOS or whatever the default instead of Debian, given the recent issues, strong issues that happened recently in the Debian-based platforms, for instance. And so there's that other thing about Alpine, which makes us consider, okay, should we actually, because right now we do deliver an Alpine-based flavor of Jenkins Docker images. So should we keep doing that, for instance? And that's uncertain, I think.
Right. Yeah. Sorry, I probably misunderstood the thing. So I understand the situation. As I see it, in long term, it is convenient for us to switch from distribution to distribution to work around the limitations in one world, and that's perfectly fine. But in order for us to keep doing this in the future, it would actually be beneficial if we do not commit in using a particular distribution, right? So we just say, okay, here's some Linux with Jenkins in it, but nobody should really depend whether this is Alpine or Debian or whatever else we would have to switch to next year.
Yeah, I mean I think that's actually. I mean, I'm not going to, because I think I've done that too much already. But I think I shouldn't be trying to solutionize it actually. But I think your points are really important and would definitely be interestingly covered, I think, by a discussion about a JEP that would try to define why and what we support actually, because that would be kind of the goal of it, indeed. So anyway, I think there's what you're saying, Oliver, shows that there actually needs to be discussions about how, why, what we do support. Do we support something? I mean, is this just a best effort? Is this some kind of minimum support? And so yeah, interesting. There's a lot of discussion to be had, I think.
Let's not solve it. Let's say something for the JEP.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, it's interesting because it shows that there's a lot of questions, maybe more questions right now than answers. Where are we? What time is it? Okay, right. We have supposedly at least 15 minutes left maximum. Not saying we should consume it all if needed, as always, but yeah. So are we good in terms of images? I think we are probably going to move forward soonish on the Java 11 front, because indeed that's not great that we support something, and anyway right now it's broken, so we need to fix it. But that's kind of fine to move quicker because that's an experimental image for now. But yeah, indeed it creates probably the what we just discussed, the discussion, the need for digging into the long-term support when this becomes GA and everything, to actually document and discuss with the community what we are going to be selecting as a base image or whatever for the future. Okay, let's move over to next point, given we have a few things to cover. Okay, this is just a copy-paste of the last time, so not sure we are going to cover everything, but Mark, do you think we should cover the other items?
I don't have anything to add on ATH or on PCT. If you do, that's great. The exploratory testing is just to invite anybody who has capacity, please help with the exploratory testing of Java 11. Devin's highlight on that there is a large area of unexplored territory with the JBoss Marshalling 2 upgrade is an important thing to note. It'll help us all a bunch if we get more exploratory testing and bug reports that come from it.
Yeah, I've been monitoring since the last 2 weeks or something the new issues that got creating under that. By the way, that issues filter is public, the Java 11 non-triaged. So I didn't see anything filed by some external contributor. By external, I would say someone different, like that Mark, or people already well known from the community side. So if there's anyone finding issues outside, or you're really welcome to file issues. But right now I didn't see anything surface. Maybe I miss it, or maybe this misses the right labels. But yeah, So for the main issue right now we know about is the one filed by Mark and is already being looked into by Devin, which is a slightly different one, as I understand it, than the one about the NP that got fixed recently, which is a more random one. But we don't know about anything else that's really that really surfaced since the preview announcement, basically.
Right. That's correct. Yeah, we've got one example. This one looks like it's relatively challenging. It's not. The Java 11 experience I've had has been overall positive. This is the only exception, this safe restart. But all the other things, it's behaving quite well. I'm really pleased with how my exploratory testing is running. I'm prepping all my Git plugin 4.0 beta prep release work is being done on a Java 11 instance, and it feels surprisingly smooth.
Great.
So I'm very pleased with it, but I think we need more bodies than just the one or two of us testing.
Yeah. Yeah, but that's really great because you're one of the rare contributors to also run the workload and your tests on many platforms like Windows, which is not that common, I think. So that's great because if you're saying that you don't see issues even on Windows, Linux, and many other flavors, that's already really cool given given the high level of usage of the Git plugins. So yeah, that's great. Great. So let's see what we would be covering. I think we covered everything. The rest is just a copy paste of last time, so I'm not going to go through it. If nobody has something specific to cover, I think.
I was actually going to just delete that block
absolutely.
of text. Is there anything that you wanted to report to us as new information on ATH or PCT, Baptiste?
Not really. I think, as I said, there was a really trivial improvement, so I don't think that's really something people should be bothered about during that meeting. Anyone can have a look at. For PCT, for instance, there was a few, I think, also on ATH. We fixed, since last time, I think there was a lot of effort to actually fix Jenkins core, but that was something about ATH, and so we ended up fixing it, so now the core is better. But that's not really related to the platform thing, well, partly because of ATH now being used, is all the time for Jenkins core PRs. So that's something that now gets normally better, I think. I didn't have a look like in the last 2 days or something. Now, in contrary to 2 weeks ago or something, everything is, or almost everything is green now. Well, sometimes there's the random faders, but it's much rarer. So that's great. Before it was like this, so now it's great. So that's an improvement that we achieved some time ago, thanks mainly to Ramon, and yeah, and that's it. I think let's just cut the meeting short if we have covered everything. I'm not going to consume the time just for the sake of it. Anything else, anyone, before we close?
We had an action item for Oleg on JEP 217. I assume nothing to report there with him being unavailable.
JEP 2, I don't remember what was that one.
He was
that was the one about
talk to the
infra.
developers list about making progress on JEP 217.
Yeah, right. So so that we can explain maybe quickly. So that one is pretty easy. Basically, we are going to have an automated publishing of images from the because right now official images are published from what we call the trusted infrastructure, which very few people have access to for obvious security reasons. But for making it easier to test experimental releases, we are going to we have already started to publish things to the experimental organization on Docker Hub, and it's actually publishable from ci.jenkins.io, contrary to official builds. But I mean, yeah, that's not something I'm going to dig into too much right now, because I don't think that that's something really needed as a sync up call, and anyone interested could dig into it, I guess. And it's explained well enough in that JEP, by the way. I think we are good. We covered that. So yeah. Thanks for raising it, Mark. Anything else, anyone?
Nothing else from me.
Great. So thanks for coming. Thanks for watching, and see you. Is this just checking next week, same time, I think? Or is this every
I
2
believe
weeks?
we're every 2 weeks.
Yeah, right. Indeed. So that's the next time would be just checking. Yeah, right. The 17th. Right. Thank you, everyone, and see you next time. Cheers.